Germany and the US have a lot of similarities pertaining to our social norms, but we continue to find small and unique differences as we live here in Germany. Not all of the ways we learn these lessons are fun and comfortable though. In fact, most of the times we learn through painful, awkward, and very uncomfortable social interactions.
Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. I am Donnie.
And I'm Aubrey.
And we are two Americans currently living in Germany and sharing all of our experiences living and traveling throughout Europe. We have been living in Germany for a little over a year and a half now, and in that time we have noticed that we have started to become less and less relatable to our friends and family in the US because some of our daily experiences here in Germany are things they simply just don't experience in America. We've covered in a lot of our videos how similar daily routines, life, and social customs are between Germany and the US in many cases. However, it is the little nuances in daily life that seem to make the biggest differences in our experience. We unfortunately learn these types of differences mainly through awkward interactions when we assume we know what we are doing in Germany when a social setting seems like one we are used to back in the States, but suddenly stumble into a cultural difference lesson that we could never have guessed existed. And that is exactly what we are going to talk about today in our video: awkward social interactions, money transactions, and our American overreactions.
Our experiences are definitely specific to where we are originally from, a state in the southern US called Oklahoma, and where we live now in the southwestern German state of Rhineland-Pfalz. Both of these places have their own unique subcultures that may not be representative of the two countries as a whole. Therefore, let us know your experiences with these things in the comments below and where you're from. Also, if you're from a different country than these two, we want to hear about what these things are like where you live.
Both in the US and Germany, when you are in a restaurant and you have finished your meal, you must then pay the bill. This is also the moment we experience our first awkward interaction and difference between Germany and America that we are talking about today. In the US, the waiter will normally bring your ticket to your table and then just simply walk away. You will check it over and place your card with the ticket on the table where the waiter can see it. Now, before we moved to Germany, I thought the next part was completely normal, but now I have grown to feel very uncomfortable with it. The waiter will come, grab your card, and then walk off with it out of sight where they charge it and then bring it back. At that point, you will leave a tip, and one common way will be to write how much you want to tip on the receipt they bring back, and then you leave it on the table as you walk out of the restaurant. However, here's the interesting thing. As if them carrying literally all of your money away to a place you can't see it isn't already the interesting thing. When they take your card to charge it, they don't actually charge it.
After the server takes the credit card?
That's my brother. He has worked in the restaurant industry and most recently managed a couple of restaurants in Oklahoma.
When the card is swiped, it's documenting the information that's on the credit card, but it's also encrypting it so it can't actually be seen or anything. It's just housed within the application. And then at the end of the night, the managers are going to be going through each ticket and making sure everything checks out. At that point, they will close all the tickets. That is the actual moment that the card is charged. So the whole time, the information is being held to the ticket. So you're not actually charged until the actual end of the night.
So you leave a little note on the table for how much they go back and charge, and you two never interact over the tipped amount because you are long gone before they ever even see it.
In Germany, the system is a little more transparent, but that doesn't mean we escape it without an awkward interaction. In Germany, when you ask for the bill and say you want to pay with card, they will bring the card reader to your table so you see them charging it right in front of you. No funny business going on here. However, then comes the awkward moment where you tip. There are two social interactions we experience most often, yet both equally awkward and uncomfortable for us coming from our norms. Either 1, the waiter stands over you, types in how much the meal is, you pay, and a prompt will come up on the machine asking you how much you would like to tip. The waiter then holds out the machine and you have to type in an amount right there in front of them while they patiently wait to figure out if you are cheap or not. Or awkward situation number 2, they tell you how much the meal is and then you tell them how much you want them to actually charge you. So you quickly do the mental math or just round up the bill a little bit and tell them a higher total you want to pay that includes the tip amount. They type that in while judging you based on how good of a tip you're leaving them. Or at least that's what we feel like they're probably doing.
Now, I'm going to assume this does not feel awkward to people who have grown up with this system, and Germans do have a tendency to be much more direct. So I'm sure if they have received poor service and want to leave a lower tip, they probably wouldn't bat an eye as they tell the waiter how they evaluated their service really. However, for us, and maybe most Americans, nowadays we don't have this interaction anymore where we are giving the tip amount directly to the waiter, in which we feel like we are telling them what we thought of the service exactly. Americans are also typically less direct or confrontational, so that plays a part in how we feel, I am sure. We are used to just writing it down and then you know the waiter will read it on their own time later. All in all, my policy is to just tip good and then everybody is happy whether they find out later or right there in the confrontational moment. Also, there's a big difference on how much people generally tip. Now, everybody knows about the difference in tipping culture between the US and Germany and why we do so I don't need to know that. But just if you are German, what is a normal tip amount for you? And if you're from somewhere else, what is customary where you live?
In keeping with the payment theme, there is another awkward interaction during a transaction that we had never experienced in the US. If you're grabbing something really quick to eat, a coffee or some other purchase at a counter in the US, you always hand your cash or card to the person behind the counter directly, from your hand right into theirs. Based on that norm, it almost feels a little rude if you don't hand it to them directly and lay it down for them to pick up off of the counter, especially if they're right there in front of you. Almost like you think you're better than them and they must pick it up after you. Because of doing this for 28 years of my life, it has been built into me and it just is completely involuntary now.
But in Germany, one thing you may notice when you order at counters is a little tiny plate sitting next to the register. That is a money plate and is where you drop your money to pay and the cashier picks it up. From our experience, when you are paying with card, you will just tap with your contactless card yourself or hand that to them rather than dropping it on the plate in many cases, but sometimes we see people drop that on the plate as well for the cashier to grab. The plate seems to be handy for when you're paying with bills and coins as a place where it can be inspected easily to ensure it is the right amount before being picked up and stuck in the register.
Now, there is nothing awkward about that necessarily, unless you're like us, having been trained to hand your money to the cashier, so you do that out of instinct, then remember that the money plate is there, so you go to put it down there, but the cashier saw you were handing it to them, so they reach out to take it from you. So then you realize that and raise the money back up, but they saw you going down to the money plate, so they bailed on that idea, and then you both end up going up and down until you finally somehow make contact to pay.
Real quick, I just wanted to take a moment and make everybody feel awkward by thanking you so much for watching this video and asking you to hit that like and subscribe button as well as sharing this video. This video was not sponsored by anybody, but you guys watching it is what supports us to be able to keep bringing you these videos. Anything you do to interact with us helps us out way more than you know, but if you have enjoyed it and want to support us in other ways, we have our Patreon linked in the description and you can check it out. There you will find some behind the scenes or never before seen bloopers for our patrons and ways that you can support our work. We very much appreciate the help and you interacting with us so that we can keep bringing you more content. Now, let's get back to the video.
The very first few days we were in Germany, we had a moment where we had our first awkward interactions with not understanding a German social norm when we went to the rat house to fill out our registration as new residents of our town. An employee called us into the office, and when we walked in, we of course said hello to the person that called us in as to not disturb the others also in there. The room was a small office with about 3 people working, and there were 2 other people also registering with the city. But when we greeted the one employee, every person in the room turned and said hello to us and went back to work. We were kind of taken aback, but returned the greeting sheepishly as we thought maybe we accidentally disturbed them. A little later, as we were going through the Anmeldung process, the other people that were in there registering got up to leave, and as they left said goodbye to everyone in the room, and everyone responded, including the person we were in the middle of working with. We were taken aback once again and confused, but we said tschüss like everyone else and carried on.
It wasn't until later that someone explained explained to us that this is fairly common and a courteous thing to do in Germany. When you walk into a room, you greet everybody and then also say goodbye to them as you leave. This is true for many situations like doctor's offices, waiting rooms, elevators, offices, etc. If you walk in a room and people are there, you say hello to them and they say hello back, regardless if you will interact with them or not for the remainder of the time you are in that room. Now, we want our viewers to weigh in on this because we are very intrigued with the differences in how we interact with strangers between the US and Germany. For example, in the US, we love a good small talk conversation with strangers, but this is something that Germans love to comment on our videos they can't stand. We also have talked about how in our part of the US, you always greet everybody in passing while walking, but in Germany, it just seems a little bit hit or miss for us on if a German would respond back to our greeting depending on where we are out walking. Yet, when you walk into that doctor's waiting room with a room full of strangers in Germany, you better expect to hear that chorus of hellos followed by a painful awkward silence as nobody talks anymore until someone leaves and they all make sure to tell them goodbye. So what do you think? Do you say hello on the streets or just in a room of strangers? And do you like it just stopping at the obligatory hello and goodbye? Or do you sit there wishing you could talk more?
Now, there are some things Germany has done to ensure that they avoid some awkward social interactions that we are very thankful for that we don't experience anymore living in Germany that does happen in the US quite often. We want to give you one such thing so you know Germany isn't the only place where we are put into uncomfortable social interactions that is not relatable to the other culture. Actually, it's an awkward situation that should not be social at all and happens in a place you should not interact with people at all. And well, it's making eye contact with somebody through the cracks of a bathroom stall in American public restrooms. Ugh. In the US, for a very unexplainable reason, bathroom stalls are famous for not going all the way down to the ground, being relatively short at the top, and for having huge cracks around the door and walls. It does its job, kind of, by giving one privacy when going to the restroom, but not completely. It is very easy to still see someone through the cracks, and sometimes this leads to awkward eye contact with someone sitting on a toilet as you check to see if it's available or not.
In Germany, they cannot relate to this awkward feeling Americans know so well because this form of bathroom stall does not exist here. If they are the cubicle styles like we are talking about in the US, they are made without cracks in them, tend to go much lower to the ground, and you are completely protected from wandering eyes inside. However, it is also very common to enter a German bathroom and they have full rooms built to enclose every toilet for maximum privacy. Why America chooses to live with this indecent and uncomfortable awkward interaction when it is completely avoidable, as the Germans have proven, we just don't know.
Although our cultures have a lot of overlaps and similarities, there are still subtle differences between American and German cultures that can sometimes lead to incomprehensible, awkward social interactions based on the norms in either country. Just when we think we are getting more and more comfortable with the social customs here in Germany, we will find ourselves in an uncomfortable small experience that makes us laugh and helps us grow and learn.
If you know of any other situations like these or have experienced any in your travels around the world, leave those in the comments below. To see who made it this far in the video, Marvel or DC, who has the superior superheroes? Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we will see you in our next video.
Tschüss!
We've covered in a lot of our videos.
Almost like you think you're better than them. Maybe we just overanalyze everything.
Could be. Or just socially awkward ourselves.
That could be it.